accomplices. Welcome to my channel. I'm Lynda Norman. I'm a watercolor artist in the province of British Columbia. Today we're going to talk about applying watercolor from the tube to the canvas using different tools. We've talked about this before, and now today we're going to look at using palette knives and other products that help us apply those pigments to the canvas. We've got some beautiful inspiration I've brought back with me from Scotland. The colors are almost indescribable. I found it very hard some days to find the words as I was traveling through that beautiful country. But I have some pieces of inspiration with me. This is a tartan that really appealed to me. They are my colors. If you followed me at all, you'll know that the Mayan dark blue and the undersea green and the golds kind of come together. Sort of as my signature, it seems. Very calming colors, very appealing to me, and I use them a lot. So we'll probably stick with those colors today for some of this. The other thing is the heather that grows there so prolifically is absolutely amazing. And there's a company there called Heather Gems that compresses the stalks of the heather after they've dyed them. And then once they've been compressed into a solid block, they slice them. And oh my gosh, they are just absolutely gorgeous. So here are some pieces of the raw slices, if you can see that. Once they've done that, they form them into jewelry. So they lacquer them, they put resin on them. Here's a ring that is made from these pieces. I have earrings to match. Absolutely lovely. I love that the creativity that comes forth when there are so many products available. As I've said before, I believe we're all born creative, and we should celebrate that every day. So no matter what you're doing, if you're putting thought to it, you're creating, and I think that's absolutely beautiful. So with those things in mind, here's an example of some of the colors that we will be using to bring the colors of Scotland forward. This is a watercolor on canvas applied with a plastic tab, and a good example, I think, of the blend of colors that can be achieved. So today, I think today I want to work on this oval-shaped canvas. I won't treat it with anything. It's the way it came from the store. I just love the shape of it, and it kind of reminds me of a lot of what I saw there was rolling hills and beautiful colors. So, and water, lots of water. So the kind of round shape kind of reminds me of that a little bit. Some of you have mentioned that the plastic tabs, which I do love to use, put them there, are a little bit challenging to hang on to, and I find that sometimes too. They can be a bit of a hard thing to control. So today I thought we would talk about applying paint to the canvas with other tools. We have palette knives. There are so many to choose from. They're very affordable. You can buy them in multi-packs, I think, from your craft stores and maybe even in your dollar stores and art stores. There's metal ones. There are plastic ones that have different shapes and different edges on them. Some of them are wider and have various angles on them. I mean, if you wanted to do a great big one, I have a kitchen spatula that I sometimes use as well for bigger pieces. So we've got, lots and lots to choose from. Here's a nice long thin one. And I've even got this little one that came into my studio through an art trade event that we had with one of the art groups that I paint with. And it's got a rounded edge, square edge, very light and easy to handle. So we'll test all of these out, I think, today. Now the colors in this, the tartan, and the one example that I've got here are my trusty Mayan dark blue, undersea green. I've got a little bit of quinacridone gold, of course, coming in, and those are my go-to colors. But today I thought perhaps we would go with the theme of some of the heather pieces that were found. And they're a beautiful cobalty kind of blue, some teal, and even some, I've got some titanium, buff titanium color that I wanted to incorporate as well. So we're going to use these as inspiration. And, oops, there we go. When I set my paints out of the tube, I put them on a piece of photo paper. Any photo paper will do. I like to buy the ones that, this one in fact came from Costco locally, because it doesn't have any printing and writing on the back. Some brands have their brand stamped all over it, and I was using these for some alcohol ink and some watercolor projects, so I didn't want the printing. So what I've done is I've cut the pages up, some of them. I won't use the shiny side because there's an emulsion on there, and if you add water or pigment to that, it's going to lift that emulsion. It's there for a reason. It wants to grab the ink when you're printing a photo, but it doesn't do much for watercolors when it mixes in with your paints and your water. So I flip it over. There's a matte side to it, and that is a nice non-porous surface for me to put my pigments onto. And some of the colors that I really thought would be beautiful with the heather tones, this is called manganese blue. And I'll just put a dab of that out. It's a lovely mid-tone blue. There's an indanthrone blue, which is, again, not quite as dark as the Mayan blue, but it will give you these dark pieces in here. So I'm going to just put a little bit of that on my, I don't know if you can see this, better move it to the center. There. So I'm just dabbing a little bit out of the tube onto the piece of photo paper. You could use anything. You could use a plate, another little palette, just as long as you've got room to dip your palette knife and everything and things into it. So this is a cobalt teal blue, which I think will pick up nicely on these beautiful, lovely green colors. And then the highlight of this will be, I've got two paints to choose from here. This one is one of the schminky, super granulating ones, and it's a desert yellow. And then I've also got buff titanium. Now the desert yellow is a granulating paint, and it will give us some beautiful effects. So I think we'll try that. The buff titanium is beautiful, but it's almost opaque. So it will give a whole different effect to the painting. In some instances that is great. We'll give it a good grounding, but I think we'll stick with the yellow for highlights. And I'm going to leave that, I think, until I get the rest of it applied to the canvas. So there's my color. There's my canvas. I'm going to use a hockey brush. It's called hockey. I've been pronouncing it wrong, apparently. I've been saying hake or hake. I've learned that it's called a hockey brush, just like hockey, the game we play. These are really great brushes. They're made of goat hair, and I don't know if you can see, they're stitched to hold the hairs in place. So they've been glued inside and then stitched into the handle. So they will hold a ton of water. They're just lovely. They have lots of good surface on the end if you're doing any stippling. But they also lose a lot of hairs when you first start using them. So don't be discouraged. Wash the brush as well if you have a new one. And be prepared to just pick some hairs off as you go along. That's easy to do. I prefer to wait till the painting is dry and pick it off, but it depends on you know, how you're able to pick that off and not disturb your surface. So with this process, I like to start off with some random bits of water. The reason I like the random and the intermittent bits of water is that when you're dragging your paint across with your tools, wherever there's no water, you'll get a beautiful granulating and intermittent effect. And I kind of like that. It gives it some earthy tones. And I also like to leave about 2/3 of the way down a strip that's completely dry. Sometimes I'll even just throw a bit on like that. Okay. So today let's try. I kind of like the looks of this long, thin palette knife. And I'm just going to, I don't know if you can see that, I'm going to dip it slightly into the side of the paint dots. So I've got all 3 colors on my palette knife. And I'm going to be thinking of those beautiful hills that I was seeing, the rolling hills. As much as Scotland is rugged and the coastline is rugged, so much of the landscape is beautiful and gentle and inspiring with the colors. There was one valley glen that we went through, Glencoe it was called, and it is called, and it's often termed the Valley of, or the Glen of Tears. And as we were driving through, it was misty and it was raining, and waterfalls just magically appeared from out of the hillsides and tumbled down just because of all the moisture in the air. It was absolutely magical. So as I'm pulling this across, making some rolling hills with a little bit, perhaps that's a little bit of a loch in the background. And then we'll put some more. Oops. So basically you're picking up your colors and you're just moving them across the surface. Now I kind of like that there's this beautiful teal, and I've got quite a bit there. I'm going to take that and just move some of it in. This is one of the processes where I will use this mister spray bottle. It's actually a facial mister. Nice fine mist. It's great for this process because I can direct it, but it still gives me enough of a fine mist. So if I feel like I should have added more water to an area, I can just add it. And if I tip the surface, I get a beautiful flow. And because now it's wet, I can spread the color out a little bit more. Now I'm going to clean that off. I love that there's diffusion happening. The colors at the top are just flowing into where the water is. And I'm going to just encourage that a little bit with my palette knife to become more sky-like. And as with my watercolors on paper, I will use a paper towel and take a look at where a lot of the excess water, sometimes it pools and you can let it run. Sometimes it's just a bit too much, or if I wanted a cloudy effect in my sky, then I would just be able to dab out a few spots like that. Make those clouds. The sky, the skyscapes, the clouds, the weather patterns were just breathtaking. A lot of the time we spent was on the coast, watching tides come in and weather patterns change and emerge. It was actually one of the favorite parts of the trip for me was just watching how the landscape changed with the weather patterns. Okay. So I love that this is coming together with some mountain shapes, and I can encourage a few more of those to be a little more rugged just by taking out some of the color. There was no snow when we were there, but if you wanted to have a snowy mountaintop, then you can certainly pick out some of the color, make your paper towel more thin, and just go in and carve out the tops of some mountains. Okay. Now I said we were going to add some sandier tones, some earthier tones. And so this is the Schminky Desert Yellow. And we'll put a little bit of that in. And for that one, I'm going to try this particular palette knife because it's got a long edge and a short edge. And I think I just want to take the short edge, pick up a little bit of that, and create some landlines. So these might become a bit of a shoreline, and I've got a bit of more water there than I thought I would need. So I'm just taking a bit of that off with the paper towel. And the colors blend together. They become more natural, more organic looking. And there they look like a little bit of a rocky shore. And use your palette knife or whatever you have in your hand to just form some of those rocky shapes. And so what you're doing here is basically just encouraging the pigment that's on the pardon me, on the surface. And as you might already know, I like to just create as I go. Very seldom will I paint from a reference, but having said that, it's always nice to have some references that you can work from. Right. Now I think I'm just going to dip my palette knife in the water and encourage some of this where the pigment is a little thicker. And I thought originally that might be a lake in the background, but I think I like that it's probably more conducive to be mountains. So just with a bit of water on my palette knife, I'm going to change these into some mountains, and this will be, if I move some of this blue into that lighter blue, it just will give me some shadows with a bit of that. Looks like some sunlight on the background. And then I can take some of that out to make some mist on those mountains. The mists and the rain really were magical. I don't know how anybody could complain about the weather when it's just so beautiful. All right, so you can see here where at this point where the moisture has sort of allowed the pigment to it's almost like it's falling down. So that would, to me, would indicate some beautiful shadows into this lake area. And I'm going to put the palette knife away now, and I'm going to switch to a flat brush. This is most likely an acrylic brush, but I love that it has a nice chiseled edge when it's wet, and as a thirsty brush. So the brush has been dipped in water, dried off on the paper towel slightly, it's slightly damp enough to hold that beautiful chiseled edge. And I can go in now and start defining some of those, what I perceive to be shorelines. So a dab, a dry, and just pull across. So essentially you're pulling away pigment to create a bit of light. And in the back here I see a bit of that beautiful teal blue showing through. And I'm going to play with that. Make those beautiful long shorelines. When it's dry, you could go in, you could add some birds. The birds there were very healthy. Seagulls, I've never seen seagulls as big as what we saw there. And so you know they're being well fed with the ocean so close by. So some of these white patches, I just kind of like that they're there. They add a bit of interest. I'm never worried about filling in all the spots. I like that the white of the canvas or the paper is there to enhance what's going on. So I'm just imagining, you know, some mountaintops in the background here. Maybe lift up a bit more and allow the blue that's there to act as shadows. There are beaches in Scotland that are, you'd swear they were from the Caribbean. The colors of the water is and the sand are just amazing. So this technique can be almost similar to the vignettes that I love to do. So I don't mind that they're not exactly finished. They don't come to a complete design end. I just love that they just kind of move off into nothingness. And I can play on that a little bit by just bringing in some lines. I always like to keep some straight horizon lines. It kind of, for me, it gives perspective. It gives a grounding. If you do the arching movement often, it can distract you from the overall design, I find. If I want to make mountains, I will use a paper towel, like I said, and just kind of make them a little bit uneven. And I can see where just adding a few little bits of brush stroke just to feather in some of those lighter areas. And this kind of looks to me like it could be a bit more of the rockiness that's so lovely in that area. And so I'm just going to, there. The blue in the sky is drying quite nicely. As with watercolor pigment on paper, you can get blossoms and blooms with this on canvas as well. So you just kind of want to keep an eye on where things are moving. And as long as there's moisture happening on the page or on the surface, the paints will continue to move. And you can see here where this manganese blue is kind of pushing its way up into that sky area. So I think what I want to do with that, and I'll use the same paper towel. If the paper towel had an orange or a pink or something that I really didn't want to blend in, that would be a different story. But I don't mind that it's got a bit of color on it. It just will help to make that edge a little bit more organic. And I'm just going to take a tiny bit of that water out and allow those edges to soften a tiny bit. But I'm happy with that. I would call that done. I love that it's got the colors that inspired me from my trip. And I love that it was easy to apply with a palette knife. You could use a credit card, a full-size credit card. Be creative. Find things that are in your studio or in your kitchen or Often when I'm out shopping with my grandkids, they love to go to dollar stores and look at things, and they're looking at toys and trinkets, and I'm looking at things that I can make marks with, things that I can apply paint with. Be creative. This is your time to play and enjoy the pigments and the water and what they can do. And I think by playing with different surfaces, different tools, you can develop a really wonderful relationship with your watercolors. That's just you and your pigments and your surface, and it'll help you to develop your style. I do a lot of what if. What if I did this? What if I did that? Enjoy. Spend the time enjoying the magic. For me, I just can't even describe how sometimes things just appear if you allow the paints and the water to do what they want to do. Thank you for joining me today. If you'd like to learn more, subscribe to my channel. Hit notifications to keep up with what's going on. And you can also find me on my website, Bandry Studio. That's BANDRAOI studio.com.